would you rather be chasing a championship or defending a championship? I tell them it's harder to remain successful than it is chasing success. My TEDx was the toxic culture of sport on athletes' mental health, which is heavy. Like, you're supposed to love sport. I remember going on that stage and being like, I'm going to just own what I believe in. And it was awesome. My teammates and these athletes that were so idealized and put on pedestals, but they lost that human aspect of who they were. And I wanted to bring those worlds together. As high achievers, you chase them down and you generally mark off all the things as, man, that person's so successful. But it's also like, are they present? Are they able to breathe? Are they in them or are they enjoying themselves? Can they turn off? And that is something that I've personally had to work on.
This is the Relentless Pursuit of Winning podcast, where we are here to educate, equip, and inspire people to build extraordinary companies. We're so glad you're here. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you can get updates every time we drop a new episode. Now, let's get it started. Hey, guys, welcome to another episode of the Relentless Pursuit of Winning podcast. My name is Rick Meekins. I'm going to be your host as usual. And in the studio, we have Dr. Hillary Cauthen. How are you today, ma'am?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. This has been a long time coming.
Yes, it has been. I was like, all right, we're doing this finally.
Yes. Well, I'm so glad you're here. So glad you're finally here. And we're going to have a conversation about your book and some other cool stuff. Okay.
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, let's get to it. Can you give us a little bit of background, who you are, what you do, and why you do what you do?
I'm a clinical sports psychologist by trade. So the beautiful aspect of my work as a business owner is really working with elite athletes, high performers, entrepreneurs on this idea, on this continuum of care model. So I'm trained as a clinical licensed psychologist and then also mental performance consultant. So all the mental optimizations, well-being aspect that enhance that performing mindset. And then, I'm a mom of 4 daughters, which is amazing, that we add into the mix of balancing my life and work, podcaster, author, keynote speaker, try to be an athlete at the same time. So I do a lot of things, which I think is exciting in that entrepreneurial mindset and allows me to connect to a lot of people in that high performance space.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, pause real quick. So I think live in Austin, Texas, and I have the beauty of kind of making my life fit with the dreams and fitting my dreams to my life. And I think that's a beautiful privilege that I have to be able to do that. Yeah, I mean, I was a youth sport athlete growing up, and I think what a lot of people that fall into sports psychology and performance, they were athletes themselves, they understood the competitive mindset.
Yeah.
But at 14, I had this really distinct, interesting framework where I'd moved from a really big city with a lot of resources to this super small town. So I
Mhm.
went from St. Louis, Missouri to Old Town, Maine. And you can imagine the cultural different impact resource areas. And everybody knew who I was in Old Town, super small town. I'm grateful there was benefits for it, but there was also a lot of added pressure that came with when I had immediate success and I had a lack of resources and availability to me. Meaning I didn't have the AAU teams or the club soccer teams that I had. The travel thing was a lot further away and just
Yeah.
financially wasn't in the space for my family to drive 3 hours to these resources. And so I was really successful and I wasn't enjoying it. And then, I had an injury and I didn't know who to talk to. And so I realized at that moment, and my mom was a master level counselor. So I had mental health growing up my life, but I knew in that moment I didn't want to talk to a general therapist or a psychologist. I didn't feel that they would understand the true essence of me as a competitive athlete in that environment. I didn't feel like there was anything with mental illness that I was struggling with, but I felt that there was something mentally that I couldn't work through at this high level competitor I wanted to be. And so I was like, I'm going to be that for these athletes.
Yeah.
And so that sparked my trajectory. And I went to college with the intent that I was going to be kind of this mental coach for athletes and the performance side of things. And then I fell in love with mental health and mental illness and the duality between how sport and exercise can enhance someone's well-being and be a treatment modality for those that suffer with anxiety and depression and mental illness. And
Mhm.
then I also saw this deep-rooted nature, partly because I went through it myself, but my teammates and these athletes that were so idealized and put on pedestals for the beautiful things their bodies could do, but they lost that human aspect of who they were. And
Mm.
I wanted to bring those worlds together and really hone in on mental illness within athletes and the psychology behind it and understand the theoretical frameworks that allow these high performers to function differently, but then also bring in the humanity behind them and help them understand that this is what they choose to do and it is a huge part of their identity, but there's so much more. And
Mm.
how do we create this balanced culture that can be really around this essence of care and be allow people to thrive within that individually and then thrive outside of their life from that as well.
One of the things that jumped out to me is kind of that duality of who we are, as and we can apply this to business owners, it can apply this to a lot of places, but it's like you're doing the thing, you're the athlete, you're the owner, et cetera, and it just requires such a great deal of commitment and focus.
Yeah.
And then you have your family, and then
Yes.
and you're supposed to have hobbies outside of that, I imagine. I mean, how do how do you approach something like that? How do you approach that conversation?
I think it's much more I look at buckets, right? And this is kind of stemming from a health psychology lens, but we all have these buckets in our life that require a certain level of pouring into. So if we look at our social life and then our education or work, whatever bucket we would call that, your financial, your relationship and intimacy, faith or spirituality, and then health and wellness,
Yeah,
they all stem in these buckets and family. And everyone has a different level of how full that bucket needs to be to make sure that they're thriving with a good well being. And then when the bucket gets to a certain low level, how do I need to pay attention to it? And so I work for my life in that same way. I want to be great at everything I do, but I know that I can't be great at everything I do because I'm not doing just one thing, right? I
yeah,
can be as good as I can when I put the effort and intention into it. But if I'm not with my kids 100%, it doesn't mean that I'm not an amazing mom. But if I was just a mom the whole time, maybe I wouldn't be good either because I didn't have all these other buckets filled. And so I try to give myself grace that some days I'm going to spend so much time with my kids and pour into them, and other days I'm going to be traveling on the road, and that's okay. It doesn't make me a bad mom. We have we function with how we can, but knowing when I have to pour more into stuff, when I need to kind of see that the levels are functioning in a healthy way and everything's good in my system, it's
yeah,
allowed me to get rid of the shame or the guilt for the choices I'm making, but then also be very present in what I'm purposely doing at that time.
mm,
And I really, when I go into now, because I've been doing this for 18 years, right? My oldest kid's 14, my youngest is 6. I always wanted to be a mom, and I've
mhm,
always wanted to have 4 kids, and I
mhm.
let everyone in the world know that. I also always wanted to be the best professional I could be, and so I had to have, like, a good team system knowing that,
Yeah,
um, but I'm very intentional that I say, "This is my story, and this is what works for me," and do not try to fall into the trap of comparison and feel like you have to live my life, like, this fits for me, and I know that, and not everyone would wanna choose to do what I do, and all the things that I do, and so I think that that's been a really grounding source too, is like, these are the choices I'm making. For whatever reason, it's a choice I'm making that makes me feel good, and I think you have to gut check yourself of, is it still fulfilling you? Is it still pouring into that bucket, or do you need to switch what that bucket might be that you're pouring into?
yeah. I was going to ask that. We're all wired so differently. We've got our different tolerances with respect to certain things, and it's as you said. There's a guilt. It's like, man, I should be going to my kid's baseball game, but instead,
Mhm,
I'm training or whatever that is. And I guess there's two pieces to this. It's like one, how do you really effectively and maybe there's not a single answer to this, but how do you effectively handle yourself so that you're not carrying guilt? It's just like
mhm,
with my kids, so I'm not training, so I'm not going to be, or I'm training, so I can't be with my.
yep.
How do you do that? How do you reconcile that?
I think I first sat down and was like, what are my core values for myself? Like, what do
Mm,
I need for me to function optimally and perform my best and like live a healthy lifestyle? And then with my husband and my partner, like, what do we need as a team? Do we believe in and can carry the load and represent? And I always look at, what am I modeling to my girls? What was modeled to me from my parents? What am I modeling to my children? Um, Not trying to get caught up in what every other family is doing, or because mom guilt is real. I don't know what it's like for dad guilt, but there is a lot of mom shaming, mom guilt, stay at home, this work life balance of like, when you're your own boss, you kind of get to stay at home, but then you also can go to work. And so it's a weird place to be in.
yeah,
Um, and as my kids got older, we started functioning as a team. What did they need? What does the team agree with? Like if
yeah,
I get a new contract with a support team, I always ask my girls, hey, this is what it's going to look like. Are we in support of this or not? And I'm grateful I've raised some pretty cool humans that are like, "Yeah, mom, go live your dreams. Like, we believe in you." So I think I've done the right part that they live that life, but, it's a constant check-in. Like, everything adapts per season, based on where my kids are as well. I've shifted. Like, when I first started, I would work on weekends. I don't work on weekends anymore. I used to work a lot in the evening time because I work with a lot of, like, high school athletes, and they're busy, and I wanted to be mindful of when I could see them and not have stress to take them out of school. And now I'm like 3 nights out of the week. 2 nights I gotta be with my family and not be gone. So I constantly adapt, and I think that's the beautiful part when you can say, "Hey, what's working for me now? What am I gonna say yes to now?" You
Right.
know? And I don't like to be like, "What am I saying no to?" and set that firm boundary. For me, it's, "What am I choosing to say yes to?" And that
Mm,
comes from a much more positive, energized place that allows us to function.
mm. You're a high performer, and one of the things that you talked about was health.
Mhm.
And I'm gathering that you kind of prioritize your health. Is that what was the story that
Yeah.
got you to the point where you're just like, you know what, hey, you know what, I need to do better.
It's interesting, because my working out and time when I would work out used to be a point of contingence for my husband and I, right? And there would be a little bit of resentment on his end, because his framework. So being an athlete my whole life, being a collegiate athlete, you never want to stop. It's a really hard transition when I was used to taking no days off to then like how could I live my life not taking like working out and adapting and I was constantly competing. And one of my advisors has always told me if you're working with high performers, you should constantly be competing as well to know what it feels like, what it
Mm,
feels like to chase after a goal, to grind, to
mm,
be resilient. And I've stayed true to that. I always have a competition at least once a year.
mm,
But once we started having kids and I started working more in the time frame, I would work all day, come home, put the kids to bed, do the thing, and then I'd wanna go work out at, like, 9 or 10 at night, and my husband's like, "Well, this is, like, our time, like, when are we gonna watch TV or hang out or check in?" So then I'd be like, "Oh, then I must have to get up early and, like, work out at 5 in the morning." And that was a disaster because I am not someone who wants to work out in the morning. So we had to have some real check-ins of what's gonna work for us, but also knowing that, like, me working out is not alone time. It's not time away from kids. Like, people get the wrong idea that you get, like, a break. No,
mm.
I'm going to push my body to grind, to mentally check in, to take care of my well-being and my health, and it's not a hobby. It's a part of what allows me to function my best and thrive. So finding that balance and understanding what it means to me and then making them a part of it, right? We make them a part of what my competitions are. They know my training schedule. They get excited. Anytime I can have the girls come into the gym with me in our home gym, like they're working out with me. So
Cool.
it's been fun as they've gotten bigger that my oldest will go for runs with me. And I love that because now we have bonding time, but she's a part of helping me get better. And it's been a really fun adaptation that we've done in that health fitness.
Wow, that's amazing. That's amazing. That's amazing. You talked about resilience.
Hmm.
And life happens.
Yeah.
How do we and I know as a business owner, I know as, going through different things. I mean, you had your injury, et cetera, et
Hmm.
cetera. And, sometimes these things truly sideline us. We're not expecting it to happen. We don't
Yeah.
know what the outcome is going to be. We don't know how bad it's going to be when it first happens. And, potentially what the long-term ramifications are going to be. I mean, all these things, like as an athlete, especially, all these
Hmm.
things instantly go through your mind. How do you get off of that shelf, so to speak, and get back into, okay, you know what, I'm going to work with what I have and, keep moving forward, new plan, whatever that's going to be.
Yeah, I think, a lot of these things when something immediate happens, whether it's a death, grief and loss, a trauma of some sort, a loss of a job, relationships ending, injuries, all of them switch up your normal routine, right? And change you and impact and make you adapt to your life. And so I say, hey, let's not go in a reactionary approach. Like
Mm,
I teach coping in a much more, I call it consistent coping. So can we build our life where we're constantly doing things that are allowing us to feel good mentally and emotionally and cope with? So when life happens, it doesn't derail us completely off our system. It doesn't make everything start from scratch. And now I'm like spiraling. It's like, okay, let me pause and reflect and realize I still have a social support system, or I still have, this financial nest egg, or I still have X, Y, or Z. And I can now assess the problem to get back on track. And so it does come from a place of having routines, having things that you're constantly doing that make you feel stable and balanced and grounded, and then also something to chase after because that
mm.
allows you to adapt. What do I chase after now? and be
Mm,
able to process whatever occurred a little bit easier.
mm, mm, mm. Interesting. I was one of the other things I guess as an athlete, I mean, you're always looking at you're always competitive. You know, there's a goal, there's a gold
Mhm.
medal, whatever that's going to be. One of the challenges I realized that I was having is I was spending so much time living in the future that I wasn't focusing on what's
Yeah.
happening, what's going on right in front of me. Have you experienced that and work with people through that?
100%. I think every high achiever, my favorite line that my father would always tell me is, "It's the process, not the product, Hillary," right? Which is the essence of being present and being mindful and not worried about the future. I fought that for a long time because I was someone who had timelines of when I wanted to get married, when I wanted to have kids, when I was gonna graduate by, when I was gonna be debt free, all the things. And as high achievers, you chase them down and you generally mark off all the things. It's like, man, that person's so successful. But it's also like, are they present? Are they able to breathe? Are they in the moment? Are they enjoying themselves? Can they turn off? And that is something that I've personally had to work on for sure. And now as a mom, my oldest is wired exactly how my brain is. She is 14 and she's like, here's what I want to study in college. Here's the colleges I want to go to. I need to start getting a job at 16. Here's the places I'd look at. Here's the hourly rate I can sit. And like, we're like, do you want to get a job? Like, and she's like, I got to save my money. And so I'm watching her and I'm like, can you just be 14 and live your life? Can you just not worry about that stuff? Like, have some dreams, but then also like, let's just like go watch a TV show or go play with your friends, go ride your bike. Um, and so I see that in her and I just laugh because I'm like, "Oh, now I'm being my dad." But if you looked at my dad, he was the exact same way. And so he was trying to instill this in myself. And I personally have gotten better to model some of those moments where, okay, how do I slow down?
Yeah.
How do I be present? How do we actively, I call it 5 minute minds, like every day sitting for 5 minutes at minimum in
Mm,
silence, in stillness, in the space to just be around. I'm fortunate enough to catch myself now when I'm with my kids to be able to just kind of have one of those like watching yourself moments
mhm,
where I just get to sit and look around and be so grateful and blessed for watching my kids
mhm,
laughing and riding their bikes or swimming in the swimming pool. And so maybe I've programmed more present moment times, but even then, I've been able to enjoy those present moment times and setting up little rules of no phones at the dinner table. Where do we put our phones in certain places? So we can actively engage in conversations and what we're doing. Um, but yeah, it's hard. It's hard when you're a goal chaser and every high achiever is. And so I say, don't fight it. Just
mhm.
understand how can you work with that and then be able to be enjoying the present moment when the things are happening. I think that 5 minute mind for sure is one to allow people to learn how to regulate. Because when we do that, what happens in your brain is scientifically we're allowing more time to not react to our amygdala, right? So when a stimulus occurs, we don't go back to that fight, flight, freeze, fawning system
Mhm,
because we're allowed to be a lot calmer, and so we can stay in that frontal lobe a little bit more, a little bit more, a little longer, where you have clarity and confidence and creativity and the decision making. And so when you can regulate your nervous system ahead of time, like that preventative, so it's not reactive, then that allows you to actually stay more locked in. And so I tell people, do this when you're not doing stuff, right? Like, so 5 minute mind can be in the morning. It can be in the car before you go to practice. It can be, I call it an off ramp. Come home from work and you sit in the driveway. One tools I do is I listen to one more song in my driveway before I come in the house because I'm allowed to regulate. And then when I go home, now I'm becoming mom. And
mhm.
so where can you find these times to calm yourself down so then we can enjoy being in that moment a little bit easier?
What is all that about? Where'd that come from?
It is definitely one of the pop things right now, right? We always have like before it was like growth mindset, it was resiliency, definitely regulate our nervous system. Partly, I think it comes from the food trends, right? Eat all your protein and rebalance your hormones. But in essence, I think what's we're seeing because we are such a society of I want it right now. I want it quick fix. I want all the solutions. I have the accessibility with all these like technologies and advancements to get everything so fast
Mhm,
that our system is wired rapidly with dopamine response, dopamine response, dopamine response. And we see the addiction to the technology in that framework where we're like, actually, you need to regulate and calm down and not have high cortisol flushing through your body and being on such a fight, flight response system
yeah.
and have more clear decision making. And so I think what we've noticed as a society, I saw a meme the other day where someone said I used to go to like reality, like, or technology to escape my world. And now I'm going away from technology to like experience my world. Because I think we've seen so much of this shift into these electronics and devices and social media that people are like, I'm not living my life. And so now they're like, let me re regulate and get back in the present moment because I think we're feeling overwhelmed. We're feeling anxious as a society.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I found I've really got to do that. Like, I'm assuming this is the practice. I have to do that after like a workout. It's
Yeah.
just like I've got to sit down for half an hour. I'll eat and everything else, and just sit for like a half an hour and just just get back to where I can almost function.
Hmm.
I mean, is that weird or is that
No, it's
typical
same
or
thing, right? Your body just did a whole workload and now you're like, "Okay, let me, like, get back into this present space, calm down, get my blood flowing in different areas, get my brain thinking differently."
yeah,
I think people can experience the same experience in a big adrenaline business meeting or press conference or keynote speaker or big test, right? Then it's
yeah,
like, "Oh, how do I, like, calm that and get into a different emotional space?" Because the one I was just in really took a toll on me.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, it'll do that. So you're a business owner as well.
Mhm.
You started your company. Did you start your company? Was it just you, or was it you and a partner, or how did that come
Yeah,
about?
it's evolutions. So when I first started, I had no idea about running a business. My advisor was like, "Yeah, you can start charging for this," and I was like, "Okay." So I didn't look up the title of what a business should be, DBAs. I was like, "I'm going to call this business this," and I was like, "Oh, that's actually used somewhere else. I can't do that." Um, and so at first, I was a sole proprietor, business owner. Didn't know how to collect the money, didn't have the policies and procedures in place, didn't have any of that, was just doing it individually. And then I learned. And so when I started my current private practice, I had a business partner. She co founded it with me in 2015, and we opened the doors in 2016. And then she was moving to Colorado in 2024. And so I bought her out of the company. And now I'm the sole founder of that. Um, and I'm also currently building another company with a partner, which I find to be a lot easier when you have a co-founder. Obviously, it has to be the right person that can balance you out and have the same visions, and a lot of trust has to be there with that partner and knowing what your roles are and what you're bringing value to. But it's been such a blessing to when I've done these endeavors, have a partner that I can bounce ideas out of, be accountable together, grow it together, push me in ways. So that part's been really fun.
Awesome, awesome. How did you find your partner?
So my first one with my private practice, we were actually working in a different group practice together and we were just sharing ideas and goals and we were really aligned. And so
Uh-huh.
we were like, let's do this together. And then my current partner, I was actually double dating with his wife and my husband, and we were having dinner and it was talking about dreams and goals we had, and they were all sharing ideas, and I was like, "Oh, this is a goal I have," and he was like, "Oh, I'd like to learn more about that. That sounds really cool." And so I waited a couple months, and then we went and have coffee and just had a deeper dive into what our goals were and how they could align, and they matched, and I was like, "Do you wanna do this?" And he sat with it for, like, a month, and I was like, "Oh gosh, he's gonna say no." And my nine-year-old's like, "Do I need to call Mr. DJ up and ask him to join? Like, what's happening?" I was like, "We're not there yet, kid," but I'm telling you, my kids got my back. They're, like, all about mom's dreams.
That's awesome.
Um, and then, yeah, we decided we're gonna go into this, and we've been building it together, so, um it's been nice. Like, I think I just had great people in the right area, and we aligned with our vision and values and trust was there.
How do you guys determine like who's going to do what? Like, what that balance needs to look like, or who's going to own, what part of, running or building the company?
Yeah, that's an organic, fluid process, right? I think we come in knowing what our strengths are and where we
Mhm.
fit and where we see that, and then we just keep checking in with each other, and we no not none of us are making our own decisions. It's always a decision that's set together, which I think is a beautiful part. As we get established and grow, things will look different, right? But it's always, hey, I got this idea, or hey, let's have a meeting, or let's check in, or here's our working doc that we're working on together, or who's taking the lead. So I think it's been very beautiful to just know what people's goals are in the process of the project, and then
Yeah,
where your strengths lie, and then how we can take ownership and then check in.
yeah, yeah, yeah. You're doing a lot of things. I mean, you're speaking, writing books, and
Yeah.
being a practitioner, being an athlete, and all that good stuff. I mean, how does running a company or starting a new company work with all of that?
Yeah, the current practice I have, kind of like I said, we've been around for 10 years, right? So that's nice and it flows. But it's a balance, right? Like that's my main income is seeing my clients and then having the 6 people that work for me. And so we have monthly team meetings with them. I make sure that I check in, say, hey, meet with me at least once or twice a month independently. So I check in with my team.
Mhm.
But that one kind of organically flows really nicely.
Yeah.
Um, and then I have to time block. So it's like, when do I see clients? When do I do my free thinking or admin work? When am I
Yeah.
building the business? What does that look like?
Uh-huh.
Um, I've learned early on, when you align yourself with really good people that have really great strengths and they build you as a team,
Uh-huh.
then you don't have to do everything yourself.
Mm.
And so that's also been part of it is I have good people that I'm like, hey, you can go do this part. Or how do I ask questions to find someone who can help me do this thing?
Mhm.
Um, but the project I'm building now, it's a big endeavor. It's going to take 2 years, which is a totally different framework than the right now immediate my practice. I get clients, I get paid, and that's what we do.
Yeah.
Um, and that was from the very beginning. The minute you open your doors, it's like when you have clients, your business works. The one I'm doing now is a lot more of, raising money, getting investors, building out architect and design. And so I have to be really patient because I would love if I could be like, we're doing it tomorrow. And it's hard not to envision like the opening party when I'm like, I don't even have the money yet, but I'm envisioning what the opening party is going to look like. And so we have to catch back on our dreams and be like, what's the right now focus?
Yeah, 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 that's tough. I totally get that. I totally get that. D I think one of the things I was thinking about while you were talking about your team was, that I don't know, the benefit of having been an athlete your whole life
Yeah.
and then being able to work in a team environment, it just kinda happens for you naturally. Is that what happened with you?
Well, it's funny because I was a team athlete as a youth athlete, but I was a track and field athlete, which is very individual and solo. And so I think because I've always craved wanting to be with teammates and wanting to have that struggle together, grow together, have success together. I think that's
Yeah,
why it's easy. And working with so many athletes, I think the benefit of the athlete to business owner switch. You know what it's like to chase after something. You know what it looks like to have the dedication, determination. There is sacrifice. There's sacrifice in the trainings when you're training really hard for things. And then
yeah,
there's sacrifice, what I would call of time away from my family.
yeah,
Right. And to your point earlier, it's like, I'm choosing to be away from my family, to have this dream which will benefit my family, but I'm still choosing to be away from them, which is really hard.
yeah,
What has grounded me in that essence is I work with some elite athletes that are parents, and they also go through that same parallel that their job takes them away from being with their kids.
yeah.
And so, how do we support and help that and reframe that? And that is, it's difficult if you don't believe in what you're doing and you don't have people who around you who believe and support what you're doing.
Yeah, yeah. I totally get that. I totally get that. I did enjoy having a team. I've cut back. I've just got a few people that are working with me right now, and it's like you said. I mean, they bring their A game to what we're doing. They perform at a very very high level. One area I struggled though with, and I don't know if you had the struggle, was really bringing in people with the intention of truly training them. I was used
Yeah.
to working with people that knew what they were going to do. I knew how they were going to contribute, to the team or to the company or whatever it was. And it's just like, okay, plug and play. Let's go. Here's the process. Let's go. Did you ever struggle with that or?
It's interesting with my current private practice. Being in a private practice is very hard, and this is similar for those that are in the consulting space because you only get money when you see clients, right? So I'm not a base salary employee. Like if I don't have clients, I have a low month, right? And it's also isolating. It's a lot of independent. You got to figure out what you do with your time. You don't see clients like 12 hours a day, right? Like you might take breaks or have to do admin or, it's not the same 40-hour work week.
Yeah.
And so for me to find people to understand this is what the lifestyle looks like and it's not for everyone, right? And how can you take the initiative like you're talking about to say, hey, here's my formula. I have a formula. And if you follow my formula, you will be able to get leads. You will build good relationships in the community and you'll be able to get clients. But
Mhm.
not everyone has the same, like we talked about, drive that I do or ability to want to go email, cold call, do whatever, build the networking community spaces.
Yeah.
So then it's like, are they relying on me to bring in clients? And how do I handle that pressure of being responsible a little bit for their income, even though they're responsible for their income as well? And
Yeah.
That was a really hard part of taking people on and saying, "Hey, is this world good for you? Will this fit with your schedule? You might need to supplement your income with something else while you're growing. What are the benefits of that?" And so I think I got better as I've had more people that I brought on with having really clear, transparent conversations, really clear financial goals for them, understanding what it might look like. Because to your point, it is isolating and independent. And that's where outside of my internal team, I have a consultation group that I check in with other people that help me grow as well as a business owner and doing the work to make sure I check my blind spots.
You mentioned a number of times you've had, coaches or advisors and that sort of thing. How did that come about?
I'm a part of an association for applied sports psychology, which is a lot of people that work on this continuum of care model. And
Mhm.
so being a part of that for the last 18 years has opened the door for amazing humans that are doing the work similarly but different, with the same educational background. So that a meeting professional organizational hub was one spot that I found a group of people.
Yeah,
And then as I've grown in, I've realized where were my needs or what was missing for me, right? Who do I need to talk to in the business sense and ask the right questions,
yeah,
and being able to connect and network. And I joined another group, which is called The Post, that Christian Ponder, who's an ex NFL quarterback, had created, where it's a lot of actual collegiate or professional Olympic athletes are a
uh-huh.
part of this professional network. And you find your own little hub, and there's kind of a way to feel like you're part of a team, even if you're not doing any of the same work. And I joined that for the point of I needed a different community, different growth level for me as a professional, as a business owner. And so I just got curious and was like, what am I missing? And how could I find this? And how could I go learn from people? Attending conferences that I never had attended. I think it's easy to get stuck in what you're doing.
Mhm.
And as you know, I'm always trying to do other things. And so I was like, how can I grow? Where do I need to go connect? How do I do something different? Because I don't want to feel stagnant. I want to feel like I'm constantly learning. So I actively sought out a lot of these things.
Okay. Okay. So you kind of had a blind spot or you had like a gap and you're just like, hey, I want to, I want to fill
Yeah.
this.
Well, and it's no different when people listen to podcasts, right? A lot of people love to listen to podcasts because they want to learn. And so that's
Yeah.
step one is like read a book, listen to a podcast.
Yeah.
And then could you email these people? Could you follow through, following them on socials? Like, I think a lot of people are afraid to just like what we call shoot your shot or reach out. And I've always been in the framework of I can only earn a yes. Like, I'm already not connected to them. But if
Mhm.
I try to connect to them, it might work out. And if it doesn't, I was already not connected to them. So I kind of live this way of like, I teach a lot of people I work with too, like, just go earn the yes.
Yeah. 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 I love that. I love that. I think Zig Ziglar was one of those people that had that mentality. It's like you earn the right and then you go ask for the yes. I love that. What was a big challenge you had with growing your company?
Um, I think partly having people believe in the work that you do. Sports psychology, it is a privileged service. Now, if you're just on the performance side, for sure. The
Mhm.
clinical mental health, mental illness side is a little bit different
Mhm.
because, there are some real diagnoses I can work with, but it's a luxury, right? It's not covered by insurance in my practice because this performance optimization side is not covered. Helping a cultural shift to realize that athletes have mental and emotional needs that are different and can be taught and taken care of, and putting yourself out of a job. You do good work. Like the motto forever. And I've been trying to switch this framework, and we do a really good job when people come into us individually. But when you think of traditional consulting or coaching or therapy, someone comes in for a problem, you fix the problem, they don't need you anymore.
Yeah.
And that's been how things have been. And I've had teams I've consulted with and they've gone and won championships and then they don't need my services anymore. And I look at this and I'm like, I could be offended, or I could just say, hey, let's shift the framework. And it's an educational piece that I can lean into and say, I'm here when things are going bad or hard or there's problems, but I'm also here when things are going really good and you're successful and you want to get better. And how do we work through that? Like, don't take something away from your system when things are going good. Just
Yeah.
modify the time that you might need them or modify how the resource is utilized.
Yeah.
And so, from an individual framework, we set it up. I have the luxury that a lot of my clients are in the age range of like 12 to 18. And so I tell them, hey, we're coming in now, but I want to be a support system through the changes that they're going to go through their life. They
Yeah.
might need me every week for a little bit, but then can we go once a month? can they come back? And that's worked out so beautifully. And I'm so grateful for all these young lives that I've been able to stay connected with for 2 to 8 years. And it's like the prime development for them.
Wow.
It is a shift in education for organizations or teams to realize like how my role and my field's role can play a constant presence and do good work, even if there's nothing problematic happening, like how we are still an essential component. And it mirrors how athletic training started. It mirrors how strength and conditioning started, right? It was like one person or every now and again to now integrated, embedded multiple people. It
Mm.
just takes some time to get people on the board that the art of my field is also a science in place.
I'd love to hear a little bit more. I think I neglected to ask the question. I don't quite understand, how you're working with these athletes. I mean, it sounds cool.
Yeah. So this is great. Individually, like, as someone like for me, because I'm dually trained on that continuum, I treat a lot of mental illness in athletes. So I have a lot of athletes that have anxiety, have trauma, have depression, and it's impacting them either in their sport or just in life. And maybe their sport's
Mhm,
going really great. And so they
mhm,
come to me to work on all aspects or relational stuff. But some of my people that work with me or even myself, um, they're just an athlete that wants to go to college, and they're trying to figure out the recruiting process, and they're trying to navigate this, and how do they become a starter? How do they work on these mental we hear mental toughness, right? These athletes have to be mentally tough.
mhm,
And so they wanna learn a lot of the mental skills of confidence, visualization, goal setting, all the things that if they did this mental side of things, they would enhance, improve their performance. And
mhm,
so most often athletes come because there's a mental block, or maybe they were like injured, or the parents think they need to have more confidence.
mhm,
And so we get athletes that we have to reframe and educate and work through that. When I get in with teams, most often it's come in for me from direct player care to provide the same sort of resource, but then it shifts into a lot of organizational wellness, organizational systems, coaching the coaches, working with the support staff, being a provider of helping them thrive in their role and be a
mm,
support system for them, as well as helping the players perform their best and being mentally and emotionally well.
So, I mean, it sounds like something like, a lot of people could really, really benefit from. But, I just think in terms of performance and, just certain blockers, that I've
Yes.
had, throughout my career, I think man, that'd be great. Those
Yeah, yeah, and,
conversations.
that's what everyone reflects back on, especially when you're older, and it's like, "If I'd only had that, that would've been so helpful," and it's like, "Okay, let's get them in earlier," "Let's have them be a resource." But a lot of people don't wanna use the resource because they don't wanna identify that they have a problem, or they don't think they have a problem that's warranted enough to go seek help. They don't see
Yeah,
it as a positive coaching, and that's where the line can be of, "I'm just another person that helps you get better." You go
yeah,
to an athletic trainer when you need to, you have a strength conditioning coach, you have your assistant coaches or position coach and your head coach. How can I be that role? And I just say, I work with the head and the heart. I help you think differently and feel differently so you can go play well.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I wonder if it's even a knowledge thing, an education thing. Like people don't know, sometimes don't know that they have a problem or don't know that there's a solution for their problem. Do you ever see
Or
that?
that there's a way they could grow when there's no problem. And I always ask the question, would you rather be chasing a championship or defending a championship? And oftentimes people are like, "Oh, I'd rather defend my championship." But I tell them it's harder to remain successful than it is chasing success because when you're, like we said, when you're chasing something, you always have the option to earn something better. But
Mm,
defending, when I look at these cultures like the New England Patriots for a long time, or, these teams that just would win year after year, like that is a different level of success to maintain that high level and defend and perform. And so, how do we get you optimizing at that area?
yeah, yeah, yeah. Do you look at your firm like that? Like, wanting to be the best or being the best at what you do?
I mean, yeah, it's weird, right? Because of course I always want to strive and be the best, but it's how do I define what that looks like?
Yeah,
And so for me, it's not a financial. I used to chase finances. I used to chase success by how much money I had, and
yeah,
and I got that wrong. And for me, it's much more of, am I operating from a theoretical ethical framework that's doing good, right? And the impact that I want to have. And our work is really behind closed doors. It's kind of Wizard of Oz, like behind the curtain. No one really knows what we're doing. And the ethical frameworks and HIPAA, like we can't share the work that we're doing. Oftentimes, no one knows the impact that I've had because they don't know who I've worked with.
yeah.
Um, And so that's really hard is how do you know you're doing a good job when no one else can know you're doing a good job? No one
Wow.
else is going to give you my sports psychologist. They helped me. Like we hear that every now and again, but not really, right? We're not, we're like the support staff. We're someone you don't want to talk about, you want to own. And so for people who seek validation and accolades and everyone wants to know they're good at it, like how do you know?
Yeah.
It's a
Yeah.
really hard balance. And of course I want to be the best. I want to be known for impact. I want to be known that I've touched people and made a change in our field. And so that's why I think I do all the buckets. I serve my community in this way and I write resources and I educate and I still have clients coming in, 18 years along the way. And so that's important for me to know that I've been successful.
I love that. I love that. It's funny. I hear that conversation about money over and over again. It's like I made all the money, I did all the things, and it's just like money just wasn't the thing. I
Right.
needed to make impact. I needed to change lives. You want to talk about your book?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, let's talk about
Um,
your book.
yeah, it's called Hello Trauma, Our Invisible Teammate. It's pretty heavy hitter. It stems in 2018. I had been asked to do a TEDx at Texas State University. And I was like, oh, okay, this TED stage is really big. And that was like probably the biggest thing I'd done in my career and really owning what I believed in and my voice, which was like, ugh, can you publicly go out and say what you believe in? And so my TEDx was the toxic culture of sport on athletes' mental health, which is heavy also being like the toxic culture of sport. Like you're supposed to love sport. I'm like, but sport can be pretty bad too.
Hmm.
Um, and so I remember going on that stage and being like, I'm going to just own what I believe in and be true to myself and see what happens. um, and it was awesome. I mean, honestly, when I say like I hit flow state and did the best thing I ever did, like I was so proud of that moment professionally. Um, and then couple years later, in 2022, this is so silly. We were at this like professional organization group and we go around, what are your goals? And normally I would have been like, oh, I'll run a marathon, something like physical. And I was like, I'm going to write a book.
What?
Okay. At that point, I didn't have the book title, what I was going to do, what was going to happen. I I had thought years before I'd love to write a book, but it was like aspirational. But once I named it in that room with 13 people, like now I was accountable to write a book.
Oh wow.
And so I was able to get help, get guidance. So I went back to my TEDx coach. I said, hey, how could I go about this? Do you know someone I could lean on who could teach me the process, get me an editor? And it was such a beautiful place. The book itself, I had already gone through some pretty significant difficulties in my professional career with organizations I worked with and some systemic failures. And I'd witnessed a lot of trauma of things. And at the time, there was a lot of safe sport stuff that had been happening. And so I was able to like lean on these things and say, like, I could be a voice to this. I've already talked about this before.
Mm,
Like, how could I write about this that I'm so passionate about? And say things that people need to hear that maybe they've never put a name to and help people understand in a different framework and be a healing source. And so that's where this book came from, where it's twofold. The first 12 chapters of the book are an emotional invitation to help you understand what trauma looks like and feels like if you've never gone through it,
mhm,
but then also to help people heal and make sense of it for those that have gone through it. So each chapter starts and ends with a journal entry to evoke the emotion, and then it psychologically explains what's happening and redefining that trauma is literally a response to a stimulus. Like I stubbed my toe and that's trauma to my body. I witnessed a car accident. That's trauma to me. I experienced a death, right? So it's not comparing big trauma, little trauma to anything. It's just this is what trauma is,
mhm.
and here's what happens to you. And then the second half, I use sport as a microcosm of society to reinforce what trauma could look like in a system if they don't get it right. And
Mhm.
while any business, any school, anyone can use this framework, I just use sport because that's what I do.
Mhm.
And it's kind of a call to action of how can we be better as humans and how can we respond better when things happen to not reinforce trauma to occur and not cause more harm.
Oh wow. Oh wow. Who's the book for? Who'd you write it? Who'd you have in mind?
Yeah, I mean, that's the hardest part because it's so general. Anyone can read it. But of
Uh,
course, it speaks very true to the sport population, right? It speaks very a lot. I get a lot of people. I thought that until I got feedback. I thought I was like, yeah, these athletes that have been through stuff, they went through stuff like me as an athlete. Like they're gonna be like, you finally get me, and like, yay, my coaches sucked, and it's like, well, you didn't really think your coach sucked, but you had some hard moments, and or maybe you had a really terrible coach and it was awful, and so I'm gonna help heal you. But then I found out like I would get a random person. I never knew who they were, and they were working in a totally different discipline, and maybe they were never an athlete, and they were like, I read your book and this was so important. You gave me words that I didn't know I needed, and I healed from it, and like, thank you so much. And so I was like, wow, this is amazing, right?
Amazing.
And that was my whole goal with writing it, was if I could just impact one person, it would be enough. It would
Wonderful.
be great, right?
Yeah.
But I've had such beautiful feedback and responses that I'm like, wow, like, okay, like I did it, like it helped you, and that's awesome. And now can you go help somebody else with that? Or can you change your thinking because you've read this and now you're going to set up systems differently? And that's amazing.
That's wonderful. Congratulations. That's
Thank
absolutely
you.
fantastic. I'm so happy for you.
Yeah.
If
Thanks.
somebody
It's
wanted to
been
get your
fun.
book, where do they get it from?
Yeah. So Amazon, Barnes and Noble, or if you are an audiobook, it's on Audible. And I read it, which was the hardest thing. I
What?
thought the TEDx was the hardest thing, but narrating your own book, like, is wild
Uh,
because I thought I'd be fine, and all of a sudden I'd just be hit with this wave of emotion, and I was like, "Oh, we gotta
oh
cut.
wow.
I'll come back." And so, yeah, that was a really, really powerful experience. So it's on Audible as well.
That's cool. Tell me something about reading for Audible. When I read for Audible, I can't or listen to Audible. I can't listen at like the 1x speed. I've got to listen at
Mm.
one. Do you intentionally like have to speak slower when you're reading, or is that just my impression? Or
That's funny. So we weren't guided to have to speak slower, right? You want to speak in the essence of what the tone of the book is,
uh-huh.
but I think it's also being clear with because look, I got a southern twang, and when I talk fast, it's gonna slur, mumble together, and I gotta like pronunciate the words correctly. So they do want to make sure that you pronunciate correctly, that it
Mhm,
gets the inflection and tone that you want. I had 5 takes that I had to redo,
mhm.
and the hardest thing for me was getting the last 2 sentences of my book because I wanted it to leave with such this, like, emotional, like, period, at the
Mhm.
end of it. And I don't know if I did it or not, but I know, like, I was so intentional about how can I make those 2 sentences be really great. Um, and so, yeah, they don't tell you to read slow. They just tell you to, like, make sure you can read within the space that's, like, the tone and level that you need it to be for people to get the emotional piece.
Cool, 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 cool. Yeah, I'm interested in doing that at some point. Uh, last question for you. So, obviously, the name of the show is the Relentless Pursuit of Winning.
Yeah,
And so, while everybody defines, winning differently, just based on where they are in life or whatever, it's the relentless pursuit that people sometimes
yeah.
have a challenge with. What would you recommend to people that are on that relentless pursuit of winning?
To not view this relentless pursuit or this grit or this grind as hard, right? I just made this post and as reflection reminder recap that everything we're doing with intentionality, which is this relentless pursuit of winning, you're intentional about this winning outcome that you've defined as winning. And you are conscious about doing that and knowing some days will be easy and some days will be hard. But as long as you wake up every day and realize, like, I'm choosing to do this because it's going to lead me to the winning outcome I want to feel. And that's what I say about resiliency. You mentioned resiliency. And so I always use that framework as I'm choosing toughness. I'm not responding to a failure and getting back up again.
Mhm.
Real resiliency or real, relentless pursuit is I'm choosing intentionally to chase after this. And I embrace whatever comes with that.
I love that. I love that. Yeah, that is so important. That is so important. Very cool. Hey, thank you so much for being on the show. I really enjoyed our conversation.
No, I appreciate it. This is great. It's wonderful.
Thank you so much. And folks, thank you so much for watching or listening to another episode of the Relentless Pursuit of Winning podcast. We'll catch you next time.